welcome to another episode of Enlightened Entrepreneur. Today's interview is sponsored by World Outsourcing Solutions, a company that specializes in providing virtual assistants to business owners starting right here in the United Kingdom and to the rest of the world. You can check out the site at www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com. My name is Yokai, and once again, thank you for joining us. Today, I'm really feeling great about today's session here because I've got Naresh Vissa on the call right now to talk about a skill which I feel as a business owner is critically important if you want to succeed. And we've entitled this podcast as the critical skills that you need when it comes to digital marketing in today's world. So welcome to the show, Naresh. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much, Yukai. It's a pleasure to be on. I'm excited for the discussion.
Incredible. One of the things I like about you, Naresh, is you were very young and you started your marketing journey at a very young age, and you're doing really well in it with so many clients over there in the US, serving people at a larger scale. We want to know more about your beginnings and who Naresh is.
Absolutely, Yukai. So I've been in business for on my own. When I say in business, I mean completely on my own for almost since 2013, the beginning Q1 of 2013. So we're coming up on 4 years. And I got started in a very circuitous type of fashion. It was not planned, just like most entrepreneurship is not really planned. I always thought I was going to be a corporate type of person, work a job, and I had great offers, great jobs, working for big bulge bracket, world-renowned companies. But as you know, working at a company like those can kind of bog you down quite a bit because it's very bureaucratic, it's very structured. The raises aren't that great. You put in a lot of work, a lot of hours. So not that you don't as an entrepreneur, but I left in 2013. I left that corporate world and went out on my own to start to incorporate my first marketing company called Krish Media and Marketing. And I didn't do it. I didn't just wake up one day and say, I want to become an entrepreneur or I want to become an online and digital marketer. It happened in a very sequential type of fashion. So my background is in media and finance. And while I was in graduate school, I took on a project for a company. They found me on LinkedIn. They just typed in some keywords and they found me on LinkedIn. And that's a different story about LinkedIn, leveraging LinkedIn. But they found me, they contacted me, they said they liked my skill set and they wanted me to consult for them on a project that they were working on. So again, this is while I was in school. I was 22 at the time. And I told them, I said, I'd be glad to consult for it. And long story short, 6 months later, after going back and forth between North Carolina and Maryland is where my client was, they wanted me to take over this project full time.
Wow.
And I took over the project. It turns out that company was the leader in financial marketing. And it was one of the biggest and best companies in direct response marketing in the world.
Wow.
So they hired me to take over this project. I was a director, and because my background was in media and finance, they were a financial marketing company. I fit right in, and I helped start up an entirely new division for them. Now, my experience with this company introduced me into the online and digital economy,
right?
Which back then it wasn't as big as it is today, but it introduced me to the online and digital economy, and I got to see firsthand how business is transacted online. And I learned the ins and outs while I was at the company. And I also saw how lucrative and scalable the digital space can be. That gave me the vote of confidence in early 2013 to essentially go out on my own, because the skills that I learned at the company have come in to be incredibly handy. And I've actually published all of my knowledge and my secrets and what I learned in a #1 best-selling book that I released last year called 50 Shades of Marketing.
Wow.
Whip your business into shape and dominate your competition.
Incredible, outstanding. And what caused you to then move away from such a great company? You were learning so much during that time.
Yeah, so my recommendation is that people who want to be entrepreneurs, you first start out at a company where you can learn on the company's dime. That's probably the best thing you can do, because the company is taking on the risk. They're putting up the capital to train you and to teach you, and it's just a great arrangement. And in my case, I had been with the company for over a year, for about a year and a half. I learned quite a bit, and there were some political issues within the company regarding bonuses, payments, promotions. And already while I was working at the company, I started developing my own clientele personally. Right. So at the time, I already had, while I was working full time, and I was very transparent with the company as well. I told them that I was consulting for a few different companies as well. At the time, I had about three clients, and then when I went out on my own, that number quickly jumped to about 6 or 7 clients, including one client that was paying huge monthly retainers to me. So when I went out on my own, it was almost like I gave myself a 20% raise immediately. Wow. Which I know, being an entrepreneur, it's a rare occurrence, but I was fortunate in that from almost day one, I had cash flow, and by the end of my first month, I was making great money.
Incredible, absolutely incredible. And you talk about digital economy. There may be people in our audience today who have no idea what you're referring to. Can we just talk about that for a moment?
Absolutely. The digital economy is essentially the marketplace that is now available digitally and online. So if you think about, Yukai, if you think about your own life, okay, it's just the average consumer is now spending more and more time on their phones, on the internet. Having a presence digitally now is the most, I don't want to even say it's more important than ever, because that's a cliche. It's now the most important area to be in. The old way of doing things is archaic. It's dead. To give you some statistics, every minute, hundreds of thousands of dollars are spent online. Every minute worldwide. More than 200 million emails are sent. More than 100,000 tweets are tweeted on Twitter. The internet has become a necessity for the conducting of business. Even brick and mortar ones, even 20th century businesses that, let's say you're a retail store, now the competitive advantage is who can leverage the online and digital space to their advantage best. Because the people who do that will be stealing market share from their competitors and will be the winners in their industries.
Absolutely. I remember when we started, a few years ago, a lot of people could still do business without, online presence. But right now, you have to be hard pressed to find anyone who's doing business successfully without an online presence.
Yeah, it's like I said, there are many companies who are old school and may not depend on other businesses or other consumers to do their business. But those businesses, they're going to eventually have to make the transformation from being 20th century businesses to 21st century businesses. So every year, as you know, there's no exact statistic, but more than 90% of businesses fail. And it's not because of the quality of their products or their services, but because of their lack of execution.
Right.
And now, being in the 21st century digital age, the execution includes a digital strategy, because these companies that I mentioned that fail, they had the inability to market themselves efficiently and effectively.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. I want to take you back to those early, maybe few months of running your own business. Now that you had moved from working with, the other company, what were challenges that you faced, which you feel other business owners could be facing right now?
Yeah, Yakai, it was like I mentioned earlier, the beginning of starting my business was extremely smooth. The first year was it was almost too good to be true. Yeah, it really was, and even longer than that. I would say the first year and a half or so.
Yes.
We'll just say the first year was just extremely smooth because now I didn't have to. One of the problems I had when I was in school, and it's a good problem to have, but one of the problems I had was I was getting all these job interviews, and I was interviewing for these different companies, and so many different places were interested in me, and I was interested in every job I interviewed for. But the problem was I had to pick one.
Yes.
Now, in the case of having my own company, all those jobs, all those companies that wanted me, now I can service all of them. I don't have to pick one. I can service 7 or 8 of them. I can service 20 of them at one single time. So the benefit of setting up your own company is now you go from being a potential employee who's going to work in a cubicle to being an outside person who's going to provide value to a project or to a company. So when I got started, it was great because I had clients coming in and I was doing all sorts of work. I didn't even have to worry about money or payment because I knew I was getting paid very well. It was just super smooth. My schedule, I had a daily schedule. I had a lot of time to myself. I could exercise. I wrote my first book, PODCASTnomics, which ended up becoming a #1 bestseller. So I was able to do and accomplish a lot during that first year. But I know your question was about when I got started.
Yes.
It was really the second year where things started to get bumpy. And the second year, things started to get bumpy. And then the third year is when I changed strategy because I had done 2 years of service-based consulting work. And during that third year, I was bogged down. I don't want to say I was tired or mentally I was drained, but I was just bogged down with the amount of work I was putting in. And I decided that I would continue with my consulting business, which is still going very well. And I don't like calling it a consulting business. It's really, to put it, to make it more precise, it's an online business solutions provider.
Right.
So for anything relating to online or digital work, we have solutions for it. Anything online business, we have solutions for it. So I wanted to move more into a product-oriented role. And that's when I'm a financial I told you I worked for a financial marketing company. They were the largest financial publisher in the world.
Yes.
So I started a couple of financial publishing companies, one of which I exited, sold my stake in the company. And now I started a second one called Moneyball Economics, which is growing very nicely. And then recently acquired with a business partner a third one called Normandy Investment Research. So these are product-oriented businesses where we make our money by selling products, subscription products, generally on an annual or monthly subscription basis. And then that way I can actually scale the products. Whereas with consulting, whereas with a service-based business, it's more difficult to scale because you have to put in the hours.
That's
more
correct.
Difficult to do.
Absolutely. One of the things that you mentioned there is your book, PODCASTnomics. And I think it's an important area for business owner to be familiar with. Can we talk about that for a moment, what that is all about and how you ended up, writing that book?
I wrote PODCASTnomics because the reason why I got into online digital marketing was through podcasting. My background, as I mentioned earlier, was in media, and I was hired by a company to start their online media division. And one of those projects was a podcasting network, an online radio station of financial news and commentary. So that's how I got into podcasting. My background was in television, radio, on the production side, on camera side, anchoring, reporting, editing on the print side. I was able to leverage those skills, learn about podcasting, and then combine my knowledge of media and finance with what I was learning at the company on the marketing side. So I combined all that and discovered the power, what I like to call the power of podcasting.
Right.
Podcasting is an incredibly niche area of media production. So when I say niche area, when you turn on the TV and you're watching CNN, for example, that's not very niche because CNN can be covering politics, health, science, economics, all sorts of things. Whereas when it comes to podcasts will do very well if they cover a very focused topic. So your show, Yukai, for example, is a show that's focused on entrepreneurship.
Correct.
Many other podcasts out there are focused on real estate or residential real estate, which is even more focused, or commercial real estate, or they're focused on, business in the state of Florida. These are all very focused. So it really allows users to find focused content and learn more about a specialization rather than a just general topics where nothing is going general topics where a lot of the stuff isn't going to be relevant to you. Now, because of this focused niche, that creates a very, very loyal audience base. So you might have fewer listeners, but you have more engaged listeners.
Absolutely.
And the reason for that is largely because A, the focus niche, B, you have iTunes and the podcast app on iOS devices. And people, really the power of that is that the people who are listening to you through iTunes or through the podcast app, these are people who own iPhones. These are people who, people who use iPhones are generally pretty educated. They have, enough money to be able to pay the $30 a month or $40 a month data fees. So this is a very qualified audience that you have as a podcaster. Whereas with watching nightly news on ABC or NBC, it's free television that anyone can watch, and it's very passive. These are people who are likely coming home from work or just skipping channels. They're not very active users. So you have very strong users as a podcaster.
Incredible, outstanding. Do you run your own podcast? Having said so incredibly well about podcasting.
I don't have my own podcast. I am in the process of ideating coming out with my own podcast. But I produce, manage right now over 20 different podcasts for different clients.
Wow.
I help individuals get their podcasts set up. I help them run their podcasts. I help them with their content production, their guest bookings, all sorts of different things I help them with. And so, I currently manage more than 20 different podcasts, and I have probably produced or managed more than 40 different podcasts over my career.
Incredible. Yeah, absolutely incredible. Well, from somebody who is doing like myself, I've been running a podcast for the last, year and a half now. One thing I can assure you is it's one of the powerful media out there to generate clients. In fact, I created a training program for people who wants to do this, and our audience are aware of that. Podcasting, solve three main problems that entrepreneurs who are starting out face, and I call them the 3 C's. With podcasting, you get clients, you get cash, and you increase your credibility. it is incredible the way it works. In fact, during this time I've done the podcasting, it tripled my business. It enabled me to go to provide my outsourcing services to internationally. Previously we were focused only in the UK, and with podcasting we managed to generate more clients from around the world. We now have got clients in Australia, Canada, of course in the US. We've got many in New York City, and the thing continues growing. Canada, South Africa, and all through the power of podcasting. It's really, really one of those things that any business owner can go into.
Well, you're a great success story, and I'm glad you bring up the successes that you've had with podcasting. And to give you an idea of the benefits, you brought up the credibility that you've gotten. Podcasting is somewhere, writing a book has a similar effect of podcasting.
Yes.
Or even back in the day, not anymore, but back in at the turn of the millennium, having your own blog or your own website where you could put your blog had a very powerful effect. Correct. Now, today in 2016, the ratio of bloggers to podcasters is 2,000 to 1.
Correct.
And the ratio of bloggers to authors is even greater than that. So to put that number into context, if you were to fill up Madison Square Garden, so here in the United States, that's a very well-known arena. Yes. In New York City, if you're to fill up Madison Square Garden with people, the bloggers is everyone who is watching in the stands, and the podcasters are the people playing on the court, playing basketball on the court. So that goes to show that there are far fewer people podcasting, and so the competition is much less in podcasting than it is with blogging, and that just presents a tremendous opportunity to find a niche, an untapped niche, and to become the relevant expert in that niche.
Incredible, outstanding. It's so true, really is true. And if you're a business owner and you're listening to this and you've been considering doing podcasting, I highly advise you to look at it very closely and maybe attempt to do that. Get in touch with Naresh to see how he can help you in setting up your own, and it will grow exponentially. Especially when you dedicate and you stay focused on what you're doing, and you stay within the niche that you're focusing on.
Yeah, and I'll throw out a word of caution that just like being an author, writing is addicting. Once you get into podcasting, you will be addicted to it. It is very addicting, and if you make it past 6 months, then there's a very good chance that you'll be doing it for the rest of your life. It's that addicting.
Absolutely. Let me tell you something that happens. I will be when you're doing podcasting, you are learning, and we all know that learning is the mother of all skills. If you keep learning, you become better in whatever you're doing. And like you rightly say, that you do it for 6 months, gosh, you keep on doing it. And I cannot think of myself not doing it, because the amount of learning in the process that happens, the relationships I create, giving value. Now that's the most important, because when we do these things, we give value to the people who are listening. It is such an incredible way, and it's enjoyable. It's a win-win situation. Incredible, actually.
Yes. Absolutely. I'm glad you understand it, UK. It's definitely worthwhile, and yes. I recommend that people, at least, if they want to get more information, they should check out my book, PODCASTnomics. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and it's gotten great reviews. But it has everything that they would need to know about the podcasting industry, the opportunities within it, how to set up your own podcast, how to make money off your podcast, how to monetize it. So if people want to learn more, I would say that's the best way to find out more before they get in touch with me.
Outstanding. And again, you just alluding to that, if ever they want to get in touch with you, do you have a website they can go to, or other material they can get in touch with some of your work?
NareshVissa.com. That's my first name and last name, NareshVissa.com. They can find out more about me there, contact me through there, and they can also, there are links to my books on there, and they can subscribe to my email newsletter. I would say about once every 2 weeks, I send out a newsletter with some type of tidbit relating to online and digital marketing or online and digital business in general.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. And as we come toward the end of our time together, we know that one of the things you're passionate about is to give to community, or to taking social responsibility. Would you share with our audience, where you stand with that whole concept?
It's really, you guys, it's a personal decision.
Yes.
In my case, it's important to me to really spiritually. This all comes. Being an entrepreneur isn't just about starting a business and making money.
Yes.
And as you know, you go through all sorts of ups and downs as an entrepreneur, all sorts of ups and downs.
Yes.
So it's very important to stay mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, as 7 Habits of Highly Effective People author put it. It's very important to stay sane in those 4 areas. And by giving back, it really makes you spiritually stronger.
Correct.
So in my case, I do care for helping people and making the world and community around me better.
Yeah.
But the selfish motive in me also is that when I'm doing that, I know it's also making me better. I know it's helping me stay more sane and making me better, and
Yes.
also exposing me to other situations and other instances that I either may not have experienced or been a part of. So whenever anybody reaches out to me saying, hey, I'm thinking about starting my own business, do you have some time to get on the phone or meet up for coffee or something to discuss it, I never turn it down.
Yes.
I prefer to talk on Skype or on the phone, but I rarely turn it down. When my readers of my books, I've sold more than 6,000 copies, and I've had many, many readers reach out to me saying, hey, I want to, what would you recommend to learn more about search engine optimization? Or, I want to really get this podcast up and running. What is your recommendation for starting today? I respond to every note. I make introductions. This is all completely free of charge. I make introductions. Really, what I want to do is create value between people, between individuals.
Yes.
And on the side of actually doing community work, in the case, being an entrepreneur, you develop all sorts of skills, good management skills, good technical skills, good communication skills, all sorts of skills, because you are your HR department, you are your marketing department, you are your accounting department, you are your sales department.
Yes.
So you develop all these different skills, and these skills can be utilized in a nonprofit type of setting or in a community setting.
Right.
So here in Florida, I'm now quite active in various groups, and because of my expertise and knowledge, I'm able to step in without even putting in that much time. I'm able to step in and make a difference because of my experience and my expertise, which most people around me here in Tampa, Florida, may not necessarily have.
Incredible. Outstanding. Thank you for sharing that. Now, final word to entrepreneur, Naresh. If you were to do it all over again, getting started, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently?
I am very, very happy that I got started at such a young age. There are all sorts of benefits of getting started when you're young. Number one is I didn't have the chains or the lockdowns or the requirements that many people in their, let's say, their mid-30s might have. What I like to tell people is that your 20s are a great time to learn. The important thing in your 20s is to learn, whether that's in your early 20s while you're still in school and college, just learning social skills, learning about the economy or a specific job function, or your mid 20s where you're working your first job and just basically being an apprentice for a few years. And then that way, when you get to your late 20s, you can actually learn by doing, by trial and error. Yes. In my case, I got started so young that I was already learning by trial and error by the time I was in my mid 20s. Okay. And I just think I'm grateful that I got started young. My only regret is I didn't get started earlier when I was, 18, 19 years old. And that's largely because I mentioned earlier, you go through the downs, and when you're younger, it's harder to accept those downs. I think when you're younger than when you're a little more mature and older. Yeah. So if I went through those downs when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, I think mentally and even as far as results went, I think I would have been better off. But I don't have any regrets. I'm happy I got into this. And who knows, Yukai, maybe, the economy in the United States goes down the hole, and, my businesses all fail and everything goes wrong and I have to go back and get a corporate job. Well, I can do that. I fortunately have a master's degree from a leading business school in the world, and I knew that when I went into entrepreneurship that if all failed, I could always just go back and get a regular job. That's not a major issue. So no regrets. I just recommend that people, they don't jump right into entrepreneurship. Get started early, but also have those qualifications in the back burner. That way, if something does happen, you always have lifelines and places that you can go.
Absolutely.
And I wish people all the best in their entrepreneurial journey.
Absolutely. Well, Naresh, thank you so much for a great interview. And I'm sure business owners in our audience today have a much clearer understanding of the digital marketing and many other aspects, particularly podcasting, that we have talked about. And if you're listening and want to connect with Naresh, please visit this website, www.nareshvissa.com. I'll spell that for you, NARESHVISSA.com. That's nareshvissa.com. And go check out the book that he wrote if you really want to get started with podcasting. Speaking from experience, podcasting is responsible for my expansion internationally, business-wise, for my outsourcing company. So I can vouch my confidence in the whole podcasting message that Naresh shares about. And with that said, I really appreciate you joining us today, and I look forward to spending more time with you in another episode of Enlightened Entrepreneur, working with other exceptional entrepreneurs from around the world. Once again, Naresh, thank you so much for joining us, and we want to wish you all the success in your endeavors and in what you're doing. Have a great day today.
Thanks, Yukai. It was great.
Incredible. And finally, do check out the website www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com for all your outsourcing needs or other business growth topics that you'd be interested in learning. Have a great day, everyone. Talk to you soon.